the elevator that didn't stop at 4. I never trusted elevators that pretend a floor doesn't exist. The building says 1, 2, 3, 5, as if skipping a number will fool gravity. The agency where I work has one of those lifts, the kind with burnished brass panels and a mirror that makes your face look like it belongs to someone who knows more than you do. Floor 4 doesn't light up when you press it. The button is there. It just doesn't obey. My name is Conrad. I write campaigns for a boutique advertising firm that polishes guilt until it gleams. Slogans that justify purchases, manifestos that disguise margins. My partner, Isla, is a voice artist. The voice of smart thermostats, of skin serums that sound like romance, of airports you pass through in dreams. We met when I wrote a line about belonging, and she said it into a microphone like an invitation I'd waited my whole life to receive. I proposed 3 years later in a hotel, where the walls kept secrets politely. The season this happened, I was leading a launch for a luxury luggage brand whose CEO liked to wear white sneakers on purpose. They'd hired a creative director named Matteo to disrupt our work, which is agency for, break what already functions to remind us who's boss. Matteo was handsome in a way that looks like a prediction, not a memory. He spoke 5 languages like he was narrating a tour. I watched him look at Isla the first day they met in our studio, and my stomach did the worst possible thing. It believed in foreshadowing. Isla, he said, rolling the L like a coin. You're the voice of departure. We will build a campaign around leaving that sounds like coming home. She smiled the way she smiles when she chooses to be generous. Or we could build one around arriving that forgives the leaving, she said, and he laughed like she'd improved his idea while letting him keep the credit. For 2 weeks, we worked inside a schedule that made daylight optional. The campaign's spine was a short film, 2 travelers passing and repassing through a city's machinery, turnstiles, taxi doors, stairwells, baggage carousels that looked like fate. There was also a live installation at the brand's flagship, a glass cube on the 4th floor where the audience could watch a performance of packing, a phrase that made me want to smash mirrors. The floor was members only, which meant we had to escort investors up private elevators while pretending it wasn't a flex. Our building had a sister lift for the event, one that skipped 4 in public and delivered 4 in private, a secret revealed to people who know other secrets. Isla and I lived like colleagues and thieves that fortnight, sleeping in patches, kissing in doorways, eating noodles out of cartons and calling it civilization. She started receiving anonymous calendar invites that popped up 2 minutes before she was meant to be somewhere. Vocal test 4F, whisper session, alt reads. The subject lines were the tone of someone who assumes they're owed. I didn't ask questions at first. When I finally did, she said, he wants option, breathier, lower, more smile. Less smile. She said smile like it was a bruise. The first proof that something was off arrived in a whisper booth. I was pulling selects from the morning's takes when I noticed a track labeled Clause. Isla doesn't label files, she names them. I clicked. The recording was short, just 10 words read in 6 different ways. Some doors don't open. They are opened. It didn't belong to our script. It was something else. A line you say when you want to imply access without admitting trespass. I asked her about it. She went still in the way she does when she's choosing which version of the truth to use. Matteo asked me to explore tone, she said, for a teaser. She folded a cable like she was winding up a lie to keep it from unraveling. You don't do freebies, I said, trying for light. It's not free, she said. It's expensive. The premiere week arrived shaped like a blade. The glass cube gleamed under white lights on not floor 4. Investors drifted through the showroom like perfume. The film looped on a wall, a woman's hands zipping a case, A man's mouth almost saying the thing he'll regret not saying. A city wet with its own small confessions. Isla's voice threaded through everything, warm as a hand at the base of your skull. Mateo stayed near the lift, greeting members, selecting them for the private ride as if he were a host, and the elevator were a table people had begged for. "You're invited," he told me once, not looking at me. "I work here," I said. "I build the invitation." He smiled like he'd found me endearing against his will. "Then come see the after." The after was a room that pretended to be a lounge on a floor that technically didn't exist, velvet chairs in a bruised blue, a bar that served drinks with single names, a window overlooking a section of city that photographs money. The first time we stopped there, the space was crowded with VC men and their softer, hungrier reflections. A short stage sat at one end, lit like a secret. Isla stood on it, reading lines we had written for public consumption, her voice the exact temperature that melts defenses. Then she read clause, once quickly, like a mistake you choose. Mateo watched her mouth as if mouths were tools he'd studied. I watched him watch her and wanted to turn the lights up to make everyone see what we were becoming. Back at home that night, she was quiet in the way of people who are trying to avoid echoes. In bed, she turned toward me with deliberate tenderness, the kind you practice when you want to remind yourself what you've chosen. We moved slowly. We said each other's names like contract language. It wasn't apology. It wasn't proof. It was an agreement to keep arriving. The next afternoon, I rode the private elevator alone. The operator, a woman with a face that had learned to know everything and reveal nothing, tilted her head almost imperceptibly toward the control panel. The 4 button was unmapped. She pressed the key. A hidden light winked. The doors opened onto the lounge. It was empty. The stage looked like a bed that had been made as an alibi. On a side table lay a key card with a neat gold logo, Arcadia, Mateo's old consultancy. I picked it up. The plastic was warm. In the mirror behind the bar, the room collected my shape in a way that made me feel like a test. I put the card down as if it had teeth and left. The drop happened the following night. The cube downstairs had drawn a televised crowd. Influencers filmed themselves performing all. Upstairs, I hung back near a potted plant with leaves like hungry hands. Mateo stood too close to Isla in the wings. He said something about authenticity modes and touched her wrist like he was checking her pulse for himself. She moved away a fraction, the smallest ambition for distance. He didn't pursue with his body. His face didn't have to. It's easy to respect a woman in public when you've already rehearsed in private. At 10 p.m., a meeting invite arrived on my phone, 4F Strategy Internal. From Floor 4. No avatar, no instructions. The time was now. I went because I am terrible at not going. The lounge hummed with low conversation. Investors and aspirants. A famous athlete whose face sells shoes better than leather. A pop star who doesn't sing anymore. In a smaller side room behind a sliding panel, more velvet, less air, I found a table with 4 people. Mateo, Isla, the CEO in his apologetic sneakers, and a woman I recognized from trade press. A rival agency lead named Selin, whose reputation for efficient reinvention is a lax rhinoplasty for brands. "We're drafting a clause," Mateo said without preamble when I stepped in. "A non-compete with a performance carve-out for voice and image." "For which party?" I asked, already knowing. "For the voice," he said. He didn't say Isla, he said voice. "Licensing exclusivity for 6 months surrounding the launch, with allowances for philanthropic campaigns." "That's a cage," I said. "That's protection," he countered. "Of what?" I asked. "The campaign's narrative or your access?" Isla touched my arm under the table, a small anchor. I want to hear it, she said quietly. On paper. Celine smiled like the room had finally decided to be interesting. It's standard, she said. We are simply numbing gravity. Floor 4 doesn't exist, I said. Gravity does. We haggled. We shaped language I would later hate myself for shaping. Words that protect clients from human behavior while pretending to bless artistry. There was an addition Matteo tried to slip in, a line about discretion in private brand activations. I caught it and struck it, and he didn't fight, mollifying as a man who knows his alternative routes. When we were done, Isla looked at me with something like relief and something like grief. I'm tired, she said. We're done, I said. We're never done, Matteo said amicably, and the worst part was that he was correct. On the way down, I asked the operator a question you're not supposed to ask people whose jobs require silence. How long have you been running this lift? 3 years, she said. How many floors does the building have? As many as it needs, she said without smiling. Does everyone stop at 4? No, she said, just the ones with keys. When we reached the ground, a crowd of people with cameras and complicated shoes was waiting to go up. Matteo paused to greet them, hand on Isla's back in a gesture calibrated to seem protective from one angle and proprietary from another. I stepped away before I did something I could regret in squared light. That night I could not sleep. I sat at our kitchen table and went through the campaign's shared folder, following breadcrumbs people leave when they forget that nomming files is a kind of confession. In a subfolder buried 2 levels down, I found a reel labeled After-Party Scan. It was footage from the lounge, short clips of guests smiling, clapping, looking pleased with their own reflex of applause. At the end, 10 seconds of Isla reading claws into a handheld mic, softer than on stage, Matteo close enough to pick up her breath on the track. My chest went loud and small. At 6 a.m., I walked to the river and watched the water make of the city what it always does, a manageable lie. When I got home, Isla was awake, sitting on the floor in a t-shirt that made promises with its simplicity. You're angry, she said. I'm something, I said. I can't find the right word. Betrayed is too dramatic, used is too small. She nodded like she had rehearsed both outcomes. He asked me to meet him tonight, she said, on 4, to record a personal cut of the line. He says it's for investors in Europe. Is it? I asked. No, she said, it's for him. Then say no. I wanted you to tell me to, she said softly. That's ugly. It's also true. Say no, I said. And if you want to say yes to anyone, say yes to me here with the window open and the city pretending to be discreet. She crossed the room, sat in my lap, and pressed her mouth to my jaw with a patience that felt like a skill. We didn't hide from daylight. We let morning be a witness. When I slid my hand under her shirt, she breathed like she'd been running towards something and had finally arrived. We didn't make a statement. We made coffee and then we made a choice. That evening, the lounge glittered like bait. The elevator operator raised an eyebrow at me and glanced at the ceiling panel where a tiny black dome blinked, security camera. Watch your angles, she murmured, and I wasn't sure if she meant the lens or my life. Isla walked in straight-backed, hair pulled tight, mouth soft. Matteo gestured toward the stage. She shook her head. No, she said, I won't do the cut. He smiled in a way that makes people forgive men. It will live in a private deck. It will help us protect your voice. It will help you protect a myth, she said. You get to be the man with a key. I get to be the door that opens. I'm not interested. I stepped forward. The clause doesn't require this, I said, and the room isn't safe. He tilted his head. Safe how? Safe like power not staged as intimacy, I said. Safe like no cameras pointed where they shouldn't be. Safe like you not pretending that because a floor exists for you, it belongs to you. Selling, who had materialized because rivals are always where they should be, watched with professional pleasure. The CEO pretended to check his phone. A couple of investors adjusted their attention to look like principals. Mateo's charm thinned. "You're overestimating the theater of this," he said. "I design theater," I said, "and I'm telling you the audience has started to believe the wrong character." Isla took the mic from the stand, held it by her side like a bell not rung. "Some doors don't open," she said, and turned to the elevator. "They are opened." She pressed the button. The operator looked at her face and, for the first time since I'd ridden with her, smiled. The doors closed on Mateo's practiced surprise. Downstairs, Isla exhaled a year. We walked out into air that hadn't been curated. Near a food cart, I bought grapes we didn't need. She lifted one to my mouth, and I bit it from her fingers, a small feral gesture the day decided to forgive. We didn't torch the campaign. Brands survive better than people. The film played on screens in cities that don't know ours. The luggage sold to people who might live better if they didn't. We insisted on removing clause from every version but the public one, where it sounded like a promise to keep boundaries. The lounge on 4 closed a week later for refurbishment. It reopened with more light and fewer corners. The elevator still skips 4 for most. Power keeps its private buttons. At home, we harvested rituals. No more anonymous invites. No more rooms where a man's sense of himself replaces gravity. I learned to say "I need you" without writing it into a deck first. She learned to show me the lines she is tempted by before they decide where she stands. We still fight, because relationship without argument is PR. We fight and then we undress with the honesty that makes apology unnecessary. We keep our window open even when the city tries to advertise to us. Sometimes I ride the elevator alone and stare at the blank where the 4 should light. I press it anyway for the muscle memory of refusal. The operator looks at me and I look back, and we both pretend nothing has happened. When the doors open on the lobby, I step out into a city that loves stairs. I find a staircase like a law and climate, heart arguing with breath. On the roof, the air doesn't care who you are. That's the floor I trust, the one that exists for everyone, and the one you reach because you used your legs. Isla recorded a new spot last month for a bookstore that still lets people talk slowly. "Not every invitation is a door," she reads. "Some are windows. Stand there long enough and the view will tell you who you are." I kept a take where she laughed after the last word because a bird flew into the glass outside the booth and then flew away, unbroken. There are nights we fall back into old gravity, the temptation to hide in curated rooms, the thrill of a button that responds only for you. When that happens, we stand at our own elevator, the one in our hallway with its scuffed metal and honest pause, and we kiss while we wait for it to come. Sometimes we take the stairs instead, touching the rail like a promise. And sometimes, when I press the 4th floor button in my sleep, Isla wakes me with her mouth, and we choose the floor that exists even when no one else believes it does. The one where we answer to each other, where doors stay shut unless we open them together.